Discarded by many, loved by one, how a cowboy's daughter revealed the bride's incredible beauty. Dust swirled beneath the mid-afternoon sun over the cattle ranch in Harmony, Texas, as Lila stood with her hands on her hips, eyes sparkling like the cerulean sky above. The whispers of prom season stirred in the winds, tales of Amelia, the town's golden girl, draping over the community like a heavy mantle. How could anyone not love her? They said. But Lila wasn't swayed. She knew beauty ran deeper than looks, hidden below the surface like veins of gold waiting to be discovered. Lila had sun-kissed freckles that danced across her nose, a testament to her love for the outdoors, and an indomitable spirit that mirrored the sprawling landscape of her father's ranch. Yet, beneath her joyous persona lay a heart heavy with longing. She often dreamed beyond the horizon, beyond the vast pastures where her father Jake worked tirelessly, still grappling with the grief of losing Lila's mother. The echo of her absence lingered in the air, palpable and bittersweet. "Hey, you want to help me with the fence?" Jake called, his voice rough like gravel, masking the soft heart he bore. Lila nodded, knowing it was their way of connecting through work, through unspoken love. They shared their struggles silently. The land beneath their feet was their comfort even when everything else felt chaotic. Then came the fateful day, Amelia's downfall. The diner, a rustic establishment where high school dreams ignited over milkshakes and fries, became the stage for the town's cruel reality. With her father's business collapsing around her, Amelia walked in, dressed in last season's clothes, feeling the weight of judgmental glares wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket. Lila watched, her heart aching as whispers turned to icy silence. Everyone saw a fallen queen, but Lila saw a kindred spirit drowning in uncertainties. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, Lila decided to take a bold step. She marched over to Amelia, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. "Hey, why don't you come hang out at my ranch? We can ride horses, just be normal for a bit." Lila offered, her voice steady despite the tremor inside. Amelia's eyes flickered with surprise, then softened. Days turned into laughter-filled afternoons, secrets spilling like seeds into the fertile soil of friendship. Under the wide Texas sky, they forged a bond that stood defiant against the shallow judgments of their small town, but the looming prom night cast shadows, intensifying Jake's worries as he watched the two girls together. "You know how folks talk, Lila," he protested, his rugged hands trembling in worry. "They won't understand." Lila's heart thudded painfully against her ribs, the weight of her father's fears heavy on her shoulders. Yet, she refused to back down. They stood on the brink of change and acceptance, sparks of hope flickering in the charged atmosphere of the community center where the prom awaited. The night unfolded with elegance and betrayal, layered beneath glamour. Gossip swirled like a tempest, and as Lila stood before the crowd, a surge of courage ignited her spirit. Would she sway the hearts of the staunch and judgmental? As she took a deep breath, silence fell, and the room held its breath for what was to come. Lila stood at the edge of the dance floor, her heart racing like a runaway horse. The shimmering lights danced above, casting winks of gold and silver across the sea of dresses and tuxedos. She could feel the weight of their stares, eyes shifting from Amelia to her, questions hanging in the air like smoke. Was she really brave enough to take this leap? Amelia stood beside her, trembling slightly. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered, her voice barely a flutter above the music. Lila turned to her, eyes fierce with determination. "It's time to change the story, Amelia. You deserve to be seen." Taking a deep breath, Lila stepped forward, leading Amelia through the crowd. She noticed whispers rise and shuffle, faces contorting with skepticism. But she held her head high, a lifebuoy in the storm. They reached the center of the dance floor. The spotlight fell on them like a warm embrace, illuminating two girls befriended by the fear of judgment. "It's time to let them see you," Lila called out, her voice ringing like a bell. All eyes were on them now. "We're not defined by gossip or fear. We're more than what they say." A ripple of surprise swept through the crowd. With each word, Lila felt her resolve solidify, and Amelia's defenses started to drop. She could see it, a tiny spark igniting within Amelia, a flicker of her once golden spirit. They began to sway, side by side, the music wrapping around them, an unspoken promise of camaraderie and belonging, but just as the first cheers erupted from a few kind souls, the room's energy shifted. A voice broke through the crowd, slicing through the fragile atmosphere. "What are you two doing? This is a prom, not a charity event." Bryce, the town's self-proclaimed king, stood with his arms crossed, the mirror of the crowd's discontent. Lila felt her stomach churn. He was right, this was no ordinary night. Would the facade of acceptance crumble? "Yeah, Lila, are you really standing up for that?" Another girl chimed in, a harsh echo of ridicule that made Lila's heart clench. But their scorn only fueled Lila's fire. She looked at Amelia, who squeezed her hand. It was a silent agreement, a tether of courage pulled tight between them. "Why not?" Lila shouted, rallying her spirit. "Because everyone deserves a little love. This is not just my fight. It's ours." With her declaration, Lila felt the energy shift again. Some kids began to clap, hesitant at first, until others joined in. And then the hesitant applause turned into a standing ovation. Lila couldn't believe it. Did they actually get through? Could the moment of truth change lives? As the crowd erupted in cheers, the girls locked eyes, laughter dancing between them, relief flooding each moment. But it was fleeting. Overhead, the twinkle of lights morphed into shifting shadows, and Lila felt an ominous tension creeping back. In the corner of her eye, she saw something shift, a confrontation, a gathering storm. Jake stood from afar, watching the debacle unfold. His face was stormy, filled with an emotion Lila had never seen before. What was he thinking? Would he back her up, or would he pull her back, grounding her dreams in isolation again? With the prom bathed in courage yet fraught with uncertainty, Lila knew that she wasn't just fighting for Amelia. She was fighting for herself, for her father's acceptance, and for the very heart of this small town that often felt so constricted. As her breathing quickened, and the beat of hope drummed in her ears, the spotlight became more than just an illumination. It transformed into a reckoning. They had taken the first step into a new narrative, but coming face to face with Jake and the fear his presence invoked would decide everything. Just as the crowd surged forward in consensus, the confrontation hung like a storm cloud, dark and foreboding. Would she have the strength to face him? Lila's heart raced with the anticipation of what was to come, and through the clamor, a chilling question rose: would love triumph over the fears that bound them all, or would it shatter, sending everything back to the shadows from whence they came? Lila stood at the center of the dance floor, adrenaline pumping through her veins. The applause of supportive classmates washed over her, warm and inviting, but the chill emanating from Jake was like an ice storm. He hadn't moved, he was a statue in the hallway. Her chest felt tight, a pressure that threatened to spill over into tears or anger. "Lila, let's just," Amelia started, her voice shaky again. "Maybe we should just step down," but Lila shook her head, her resolve hardening. "No. This is our moment. It's time to show them who we really are." She turned back to the crowd, feeling the vibrations of their cheers. "Amelia, we can't run away now. Not after everything." Amelia nodded, the hesitation softening in her eyes. "Okay," she breathed, stepping closer to Lila's side once more. Lila inhaled deeply, allowing determination to surge. She remembered the days of whispering to Amelia about dreams and futures, of nights spent plotting how they would break free from the narrow confines of their small town. But then, that storm cloud loomed larger. Lila glanced towards Jake's expression again, trying to decipher what he was thinking. She'd known him her whole life, but tonight felt different. Did he feel disgust? Anger? Or was it just confusion in those stormy eyes? "Hey!" Lila shouted, her voice ringing around the vast space. "You!" She pointed a finger at Jake, drawing the crowd's attention. "What do you think?" The room fell silent, like a heavy blanket had been thrown over the laughter and music. Jake stiffened, surprised and perhaps a bit hesitant under the sudden spotlight. His mouth opened, but no words came out at first. Instead, he took a deep breath, and the room shifted as he stepped closer, tension hanging in the air like a taut string. "I think you're making a spectacle," he finally replied, but his voice lacked its usual bite. Instead, it felt more like a plea, an outstretched hand trying to connect. "You think this is a spectacle?" Lila challenged, emotions bubbling like molten lava. "This is real. This is who we are." An uncomfortable murmur rippled through the crowd. Some shifted awkwardly, others watched with wide eyes. Lila's heart beat louder in her chest. Would he break? But Jake held her gaze. "You're being brave," he said finally, vulnerability creeping into his voice. "And that's something. But I don't want you to be hurt for it." Was he really trying to protect her? She wished she could reach through the crowded atmosphere, shake him awake from the stupor of expectation he had always lived under. "And I don't want to hide anymore. This isn't just about us, Jake. Can't you see that?" The applause faded into a tense silence, and for the first time, Jake stepped fully into the light. "Okay, I see you," he murmured, and the sincerity hit Lila like a soft wave, disarming her anger. She searched his face, seeking the boy she'd grown up with beneath the layers of complexity and hurt. "In our town, we have so many shadows," he continued, his voice steadier now. "But that doesn't mean you can't stand in the light. Just be careful. Not everyone thinks like I do." "That's because they don't see how beautiful Amelia is," Lila shot back, her voice firm yet softer than before. "You have to help change that." But even as the words left her lips, she felt a creeping doubt. Could they really shine brightly enough to break all those shadows? As she caught Amelia's hopeful gaze, she heard the crowd murmuring, their voices a mix of excitement, fear, and surprise. It was a moment pregnant with possibility, yet Lila felt the burdens of judgment still looming, threatening to push them back towards silence. The crowd sensed the tension building like a fraying rope about to snap. Lila's pulse raced, summoning every ounce of courage she had. What if this moment could ignite a spark in someone else? What if love truly was worth fighting for? "Join us, everyone!" Lila shouted suddenly, reaching for Amelia's hand and entwining it with her own. "Join us and let us celebrate who we are." Would they hold hands in solidarity, defying the past and the pressures that held them down? Would they step into the light together, bravely unearthing who they really were? The moment stretched, suspended in time. Lila felt the crowd shifting, uncertainty blending with possibility, like the first rays of dawn flickering at dawn's end. As their eyes darted around, she could only wonder would they embrace the light, or retreat back into their shadows when faced with their fears. The silence hung thick for what felt like hours, though it was only seconds. Lila's heart thundered in her ears. People stared, faces painted with a mix of confusion and curiosity. She squeezed Amelia's hand, trying to draw strength from their bond. Every heartbeat sent ripples of courage through her, energizing her, even as uncertainty nestled in the corners of her mind. Finally, a voice piped up from the back of the room. It was Emma, a girl from their grade who usually stayed in the background. "If they can be brave, so can we," she shouted, her enthusiasm crackling through the crowd like static. "Yeah." Others began to chip in a chorus of agreement, building slowly but surely. It was a spark, igniting hope. Lila could see Jake's expression soften. The icy facade was thawing. He shifted closer, and for a moment, everything felt possible. But then, another voice cut through, low and dripping with disdain. What kind of freak show is this? A boy named Trent, the star of the football team, stood with a smug look. Lila felt a familiar flicker of anger flare inside her. Wasn't this what they had been fighting against? The noise of the crowd dipped, unsure how to respond to his interruption. Jake turned, his jaw tightening at the challenge Trent presented. "What's your problem, Trent?" Jake shot back, his voice raising above the murmurs. "This is about love. It's about being who you are." "Love?" Trent scoffed, crossing his arms. "You think it's love to be a freak? You really want people looking at you like you're some sideshow?" Lila clenched her teeth. No, they wouldn't let him steal this moment. This was their chance to rewrite the narrative that had kept them all in the shadows for far too long. "Yes, love." She yelled above the crowd, her voice fierce and unwavering. "It's about being true to ourselves and standing up for what matters." The air felt electric as she spoke. In that moment, Lila saw the flicker of recognition in Jake's eyes. She could almost hear the gears in his mind turning, wrestling with his fears and the echo of her words. Then, from the corner of her vision, she caught Amelia's gaze. Her friend looked radiant, lit up from within, a beacon amidst the chaos. "Lila, don't let him get to you," Amelia whispered, her grip tightening. "We're in this together." With renewed energy, Lila turned back to the crowd, her voice steady. "You've hidden for so long, and it's time to shine. No more feeling ashamed or alone. We deserve to love and be loved for who we are." Amidst the sea of faces, an unexpected agreement began to ripple outwards. Hands slowly started to rise. People hesitated, then moved to join Amelia and Lila. They reached for each other, breaking the barriers of awkwardness that had once defined their relationships. One by one, they stepped forward, taking a stand beside Lila and Amelia. A group of girls from choir stepped closer, then a few boys who shared glances and nervous smiles. The space transformed the atmosphere thick with possibility and warmth. Even Jake released a breath, visibly relaxing, as if he had finally found his place in the unfolding story, but then Trent turned on them, annoyance flaring. "Get real, people. You all actually think this is going to change anything?" His words landed like ice in water, and Lila felt the swell of doubt flood through the crowd momentarily. "But she wouldn't allow that. We're the ones who will change it," Lila declared, her voice fierce. "Together. If you're too scared to go against tradition, then at least stand with us." As she spoke, a wave of camaraderie swept through the room. People were smiling, connecting, more fingers interlocked. The whole dance floor pulsed with newfound energy, an uprising against judgment and isolation, but would it be enough? Would they truly defy the shadows of their past, or would fear slink back in at the first hint of conflict? Lila held her breath, waiting for the next move, her heart pounding as the crowd began to sway, caught in the tide of hope. All eyes were on her, but deep inside, she wasn't just fighting for herself or Amelia. She felt the weight of every person's longing for acceptance. The question lingered, would they dare to embrace the light and change everything, or would the shadows claim them once more? As the music started to play softly again in the background, Lila raised her voice, inviting everyone closer. "Let's dance," she shouted, inviting them all into the light. In that moment, the crowd hesitated, and Lila held her breath, waiting to see just how far they'd go. Would the bonds forged tonight burst into a beautiful uprising, or would the cold winds of fear scatter them once again? Lila's heart raced as she watched the crowd's hesitation. A pause felt like a lifetime. It was in that silence that she quietly processed everything, a cacophony of emotions swirling around her. Then, like a beam of sunlight breaking through a cloud, someone stepped forward. It was Emma, her face flushed with determination. "Let's do it," Emma shouted, breaking into a wide smile as she tugged on a friend's hand, pulling her into the shifting mass of hopeful souls around Lila. Lila felt a wave of relief wash over her, the tension in the room slowly dissipating. One by one, others joined in. The fringe of the crowd swelled as more participants decided to move from the shadows. A girl with pink streaks in her hair shouted, "I'm done being afraid," and twirled, her skirt spinning with glee. Lila could hardly believe what she was witnessing. It felt like magic, like that moment when the first flowers burst through the winter's frost. As if on cue, a small cluster of nervous boys from the back, who had spent a lifetime worrying about fitting in, finally made their way closer. They glanced at each other, counting bravery like stones. Just as they reached the edge of the dance floor, Lila caught Jake's eye, and with a nod that felt heavy yet light at the same time, he stepped forward. It was a leap into the unknown, but he seemed determined. "Let us show him." Jake's voice rang out, and the crowd erupted in shouts of agreement. The music pulsed, echoing like a heartbeat, and suddenly, they were all moving together, feet tapping, bodies swaying, caught in a collective rhythm of acceptance. Lila let the music wrap around her, filling her with warmth. She felt Amelia pull her into the center of their small revolution. They laughed, spinning together like children, plucking courage from the air. Around them, nerves turned into laughter, frowns into smiles. It was a rebirth of sorts, shedding layers of self-doubt like discarded leaves, but then, Lila's eyes drifted back to Trent, who stood somewhat apart, arms crossed but with a flicker of confusion. She wondered what he was thinking, how it felt to be stuck between wanting to belong and the harsh words that flowed from his mouth. "Hey!" Lila called out, her voice cutting through the music, full of genuine heart. "What if you joined us?" The whole dance floor turned to look at him, the air thick with anticipation. For a moment, Trent's bravado faltered, just a crack, like light piercing a shadow. He glanced at his friends, unsure. No one expected this. But did he really want this to be who he was? "You think it's an easy choice?" He finally spat, but there was a quiver in his voice that might have suggested uncertainty. Maybe there was more to him than met the eye. Lila could feel the emotion swell in the crowd. "You don't have to be afraid, Trent. None of us are." Her invitation hung in the air, a lifeline thrown into the chaos. The whirlwind of emotions in the room churned, anticipation ripe with hope and fear. Would he step in, or would he retreat into the safety of his old ways? Swaying as the rhythm intensified, Lila couldn't ignore the rising pulse of anxiety mixed with the thrill of possibility. Each beat resonated like a heartbeat, and each moment felt pivotal. What if it wasn't just about them? What if Trent's choice could shift everything and tear down walls that had stood between them for far too long? With a deep breath, she caught Amelia's gaze, and they shared an unspoken understanding. Whatever happened next would shape not only their night but perhaps their entire lives. The stakes felt higher than ever, and Lila's heart raced with clarity. Would Trent shed the mask he wore for so long? Would the crowd embrace him if he did? The finale of the night leaned closer, teetering on the edge of transformation, and Lila held her breath, hope grasping hold of her soul. She could almost hear the universe whisper, waiting for the answer to unfold. Who among them would step into the light? Trent stood there, frozen, yet everything around him felt alive. The music pulsed with energy, the crowd swayed like a field of wildflowers dancing in a gentle breeze. Everyone seemed to exist in this moment of joy except him. His heart thudded in his chest, drowning out the rhythm. Lila watched him, the anxiety twisting in her own stomach. She felt the collective gaze of the crowd on Trent like a spotlight. A mix of hope and doubt flashed across his face. He shuffled his feet, shifting from side to side, caught between the life he knew and the one that beckoned to him now. "Come on, Trent. You can do it." Emma shouted, her voice ringing with encouragement. She joined Lila's plea, her spirit radiating from the center of the dance floor. Little by little, it felt as if the crowd was helping lift the weight of Trent's uncertainty. The air was thick with anticipation, almost electric. Lila's breath quickened. She could see Trent's mask slipping away, even if only for a moment. "What do you want?" Lila called out again, softer this time, her voice threading through the noise and reaching him. "Be free, like us. He hesitated, and in that suspended moment, it was as if the whole world stood still. Her words hung like a blanket of warmth. She wanted him to know that it was okay to be himself, even if he had no idea who that was anymore. Trent's shoulders dropped slightly, a release of the strain he wore so heavily. He looked around, at the faces, the smiles. It struck Lila then, ugly words had echoed in his mind for too long, weighing him down, keeping him small. But what if he were to break those chains? With a deep breath, Trent stepped forward just a couple of inches, but they felt monumental. The crowd murmured, curious and hopeful. There was a flicker of surprise in his eyes, caught between the freedom he craved and the fear of the unknown. "Really? You want me to just join you?" he asked, and with those words, Lila caught a glimpse of a softer side of him, a vulnerability that hadn't shown before. "Yes," Lila replied, her voice ringing clear. "It's not about fitting in. It's about being who you are." His brow furrowed as if he were weighing the words, contemplating them while the music wrapped around them like a cocoon. Slowly, he began to move, almost shyly. One foot shifted, then the other. Lila felt the adrenaline buzzing through her veins, urging him on. "What if I mess up?" he finally questioned, his bravado wavering yet again. "Then you mess up." Jake chimed in, laughter bright in his tone. "But none of us will care. We'll throw down the moves and laugh about it together." Trent's lips twitched, the ghost of a smile beginning to break through. It was as if the crowd held their breath, urging him silently. Lila could feel Trent standing on the brink of a breakthrough, the tension crackling in the air. He could either fall back into the safety of his old self, or he could leap into this new adventure that awaited him. Tearing down walls meant risking being hurt, but Lila knew it also meant the possibility of connecting deeply with others. "Just take one step," Lila whispered, casting her gaze directly into his. A moment passed, and with a deep breath, Trent finally stepped forward fully into the thrumming heart of the crowd. The barrier broken, a ripple of disbelief and awe flashing among the gathered friends, and then it happened, a bold move, an exaggerated spin, and the crowd erupted into pure exhilaration. Lila's heart soared, a blend of joy and triumph washing over her. As laughter spread like wildfire, she realized this night was not just about them. It was about embracing change, about friendship reigniting the spark of self-discovery, but just as the dance floor exploded into a whirlwind of movement, Lila felt a flicker of something in her chest. What if this was only the beginning of transformations for all of them? And beneath it all, there was one question that haunted her as they danced: what else might they uncover about themselves tonight? Trent spun into the crowd, and for a moment, it was like watching a flower bloom, a sudden burst of color amidst a sea of gray. Lila cheered, the warmth in her heart spreading outwards like ripples in water. She could scarcely believe it. This was not just a moment for Trent, it felt revolutionary. As the music thumped, Trent's awkwardness began to fade. The rhythm drew him in, wrapping around him like a familiar embrace. He moved tentatively at first, but soon, caught in the energy of the people around him, he began to find his groove. A group nearby began to clap and cheer, building a supportive rhythm of encouragement. "Look at him go!" Emma shouted, her laughter bright, turning heads with her joy. In that instant, a powerful wave swept through the crowd. Lila felt it rise like the tide, lifting everyone higher. The air buzzed with excitement, and she couldn't help but dance along with it. Trent's joy sparked something in her, a reminder of why they had all come together. But as the moment stretched out, she caught a glimpse of another side of Trent. In the midst of his newfound energy, there was still a hint of fear lurking in his eyes. She could see it when he glanced back at the crowd and the way his shoulders tensed, as if he were still grappling with self-doubt beneath the exhilaration. "Hey!" Lila called out, sidling closer. "You're doing amazing, Trent. Just be yourself. Can't stop now." He shouted amid the beats, and with that, he threw himself into a move that sent chuckles rippling through the crowd. Lila giggled, feeling buoyant. He was losing himself to the moment, and it was beautiful to watch. But just then, the energy shifted. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the bar across the room, drawing everyone's attention. Glass shattered, and the buzz turned into murmurs of concern. The atmosphere thickened with tension. The crowd parted slightly, faces shifting from joy to worry, and Lila felt the joyful current pull back. "Stay here," Lila shouted to Trent as she moved towards the noise, heart racing. Just as her voice left her lips, she sensed a tug in her gut. What if this night veered off course? The thrill of connection was palpable, but now, fear lingered like an unwanted shadow. Lila reached the edge of the commotion and found a couple arguing, a guy pushing a girl away, and the girl looking distraught. "Hey, is everything okay?" Lila asked, trying to maintain her composure. The girl took a breath, eyes wide with determination, while the guy scoffed, throwing his hands in the air. "Just back off," he shouted, frustration ringing sharp. Lila stepped closer, a mix of bravery and concern propelling her forward. "No one needs to be hurt here. Let us just talk about it." But the guy's anger flared again. While she was trying to defuse the situation, out of the corner of her eye, she spotted Trent. He stood at the edge of the crowd, watching, his expression torn. His moment of liberation seemed overshadowed by the chaos unfolding. Before she could call him back, she noticed Jake moving toward Trent, concern etched in his face. Lila felt her heart race as she realized how quickly joy could spiral into chaos. She needed to bring them all back together, to remind them what they had just felt. As tension mounted, a question tugged at her mind: how could they protect the magic of this night? And even more pressing, would they be able to face their own struggles head-on when the music faded? Lila's heart raced as she stood in the midst of the escalating argument. The crackle of tension in the air felt palpable, heavy like a storm cloud. She glanced back at Trent, who remained frozen, uncertainty etched on his face. It was a stark contrast to the joy he had just felt, and it sent a pang of desperation through her. "Hey!" She raised her voice, hoping to reach him. "Trent, it's okay. Just breathe." The words hung in the air like a lifeline. Jake was now at Trent's side, trying to coax him away from the scene. Lila could see it. Trent wanted to help but was trapped by his fears. She had to act fast. Steeling herself, she stepped closer to the couple, trying to maintain a calm exterior despite her racing heart. "Listen," she said, her voice lower and steadier, "this isn't helping anyone. Can we just sit and talk? There's no need for anyone to get hurt." The guy's anger flickered for a moment, uncertainty crossing his features. But then he lunged closer to the girl again, glaring at Lila. "Stay out of this," he shouted. She stepped between them, instinctively glancing back at Trent. "Don't you see? You're being heard. Let us talk about what's bothering you instead of pushing someone away." Lila didn't know if she was making sense, but she felt a responsibility to diffuse this chaos. The girl beside her took a deep breath, her voice cracking. "I just want to talk. Please don't hurt me, I'm just trying to explain." Jake moved closer to Trent, wrapping a supportive arm around him. "Come on man, she's right. You don't want this to spiral out of control, do you?" With that, something seemed to shift in Trent. He stepped forward, finally making his way towards Lila. "Hey! You," he called to the guy, his voice steady despite the shaking of his hands. "This isn't the way. Don't you care about her?" The shift in Trent's demeanor was electric. Lila felt her heart swell with pride as she watched him confront not just the guy but also his own fears. Trent looked strong, empowered by the moment, and she thought for a second that perhaps he understood. The guy paused, confusion overtaking his anger. The girl looked at Trent, hope flickering in her eyes. "You're right," she whispered, hesitant but firm. In that moment, Lila realized the chaotic energy was starting to calm, like a storm yielding to stillness. The crowd around them had shifted, now murmurs full of empathy rather than judgment. It felt like the music was still playing somewhere deep in their hearts, reminding everyone of the joy that had just filled the room. Trent reached Lila's side, a new kind of confidence emerging. Let us not forget why we're here, he said softly, almost to himself. We came together for something special. Just then, the guy relented, stepping back slightly. The fight left him, replaced by something resembling shame. I didn't mean to, Lila inhaled, feeling the tension unwind. It's never too late to choose kindness. Let us talk. All of us. As she spoke, Lila felt a strange sense of unity in the air, as if everyone was awakening to the truth of the moment. They had come together to celebrate, to connect. But amid the relief, a nagging question settled in Lila's mind. Was this just the beginning? How could they transform this night filled with promise into something lasting, something that could withstand not just the noise but the storms of their personal struggles? Barely a second later, she caught Trent's eye, a mix of exhilaration and uncertainty in his gaze. And suddenly, she realized something bigger was on the horizon, waiting to emerge from the shadows. As the tension slowly slackened, the air began to shimmer with a new energy. Lila felt it settle deep within her. Hope danced around them, weaving connections between strangers who almost found themselves in chaos mere moments before. She glanced at the girl beside her, whose tears had turned from fear to gratitude. Thank you for stepping in, the girl murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. It's what we do, Lila replied, her heart still pounding but now with a sense of purpose. They were all just people, flawed and struggling, yet capable of incredible resilience. Trent stood at Lila's side, still shaking slightly, but the uncertainty in his eyes had shifted to a glint of determination. We're all here for each other, he added, his voice stronger than moments before. Lila smiled at him, and a warmth spread through her. This wasn't just about tonight, it was about the community they could build together. The crowd that had been anxious moments prior now moved closer, forming a circle around the couple. Jake stepped forward, the unofficial mediator, urging everyone to take a seat on the floor. I think we all need to hear each other, he said, his tone inviting. Let us put this behind us and actually listen. As dialogue began to flow, Lila felt a sense of fulfillment. The girl spoke first, explaining how she never intended to provoke her partner's anger. It was a misunderstanding, something that spiraled out of control before she could grasp it. The guy, still standing nearby, fidgeted with his hands, regret washing over his features. I guess I just let my emotions take over, he admitted. I never wanted to hurt you. Everyone nodded, the understanding growing. Lila could see the healing process at work, the shadows of past grievances were slowly being illuminated by the light of empathy and conversation. Trent moved a little closer to Lila, their shoulders brushing. Can you believe this? He whispered, his eyes wide. This was all on the edge of becoming something terrible, and now look. I know, Lila replied softly. It's amazing what happens when you just connect. Like we did tonight. As the conversation continued, she witnessed the busyness of healing. Many shared their stories, moments of pain, loss, but also love and triumph. Lila found herself mesmerized, pulled in by the rawness of their emotions. It was a tapestry of life they created, colorful and vibrant, and part of her knew they were stitching it with honesty and vulnerability. Time passed almost unnoticed, and laughter began to break through the tension, weaving a rhythm of warmth. The girl and her partner began talking more openly, and seats shifted as friends reached out to each other, hands touching, words softening. But in that moment of connection, Lila felt a strange sense of urgency. Even though spirits were lifting, shadows still lurked, waiting to emerge. There was so much pain in this world, and theirs felt like just a glimpse of what could surface. Trent, she said quietly, leaning in, this doesn't just end here, does it? We need to keep these conversations going. There is still so much we all need to face. He nodded slowly. Yeah, I feel that too. It's like we've tapped into something important. Lila's chest tightened. What if we didn't stop tonight? What if we made sure that everyone here felt this energy outside this room beyond this moment? Trent turned to her, eyes sparking with passion. What if we created a place for this? A community that inspires change and connection? Just as Lila was about to respond, the couple in front of them exchanged a sudden glance, sharing unspoken words. In that moment, it dawned on Lila this was just the beginning. They could nurture the seedlings of compassion and balance that had sprouted tonight, but that meant stepping into something greater than themselves. But before she could voice her thoughts, Trent's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket, pulling him back to reality. He reached for it and frowned. Oh no, there's been an accident at the old plant. I think we need to what? Lila interrupted, already feeling the air shift. The spark of connection felt threatened, tension looming again. What are we going to do now? He asked, eyes full of concern. Time stood still. They could turn back, or they could rise up. Would they build on this newfound strength or let it slip away? Lila took a deep breath. Trent, whatever happens next, let us face it together. Across the room, faces shifted to look at them in anticipation, the question hanging in the air like a weight. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: it could change everything. Lila stood at the center of the dance floor, breathless and wide-eyed. The room was a tapestry of emotions, joy and fear fighting for space as people processed the tangled threads of their experiences. In that moment, she realized they were all a part of something greater. This was their chance to redefine who they were, to face the shadows of their past while fighting for a brighter future. The camaraderie that had blossomed earlier felt like a lifeline. Lila turned to Trent, determination flickering in his eyes. We can't let fear trip us up now. We've got to rally everyone and turn this event into something more. Right. Trent nodded, enthusiasm kicking back in. We can create workshops, community meetings, anything to build on this energy. Lila felt a rush of pride at seeing him so alive with hope. As their ideas sparked like fireworks, Jake moved forward. You two are right. His expression softened, and he took a steadying breath. But it has to come from everyone. Not just us. Lila recognized the unyielding father she loved behind those security walls starting to crumble. It's about inspiring the whole town. Yes. We start with what we've built tonight. Lila exclaimed, her excitement infectious. She turned to the crowd, feeling the emerging energy crackle in the air. Everyone. This is just the beginning. With each one of us stepping into the light, we can cultivate a place where everyone belongs. Amidst the murmurs and nods, Emma stepped forward. Let us share our stories. Let us invite others to bear their truths, so we can listen and learn. Yes. Another voice chimed in. You all taught me how brave it is to stand up tonight. Let us create space for all hearts to shine. One after another, voices of encouragement followed suit, encouraging changes, pledging support. Lila could hardly believe it. Their small town, usually filled with whispers of doubt, was starting to light up with the promise of transformation. The night was no longer about just the prom, but about uplifting each other and rewriting the narrative of harmony. Lila turned back toward Trent, joy flooding her heart. We celebrate not just what we achieved, but what lies ahead. This could ripple through the world and make it better. He smiled, the warmth radiating from him felt like home. You're right, Trent said. It's not just about tonight. It's about all of us standing together, facing what lies ahead. Jake's eyes twinkled with a mixture of pride and warmth as he looked at his daughter. And we will stand by you, proud and loud. This is a family that deserves to grow, to heal, to connect. As they looked toward the horizon, Lila felt the promise of a new dawn breaking. The energy around them surged with purpose. They would face the future together, hand in hand, hearts aligned in understanding and vision. Amid the swirling chaos of their emotions, Lila spotted Amelia, radiant as ever. Can you see it? Lila whispered to Trent. We're changing lives, every single one of us. I can feel it, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. And this is only the start. I'm with you every step. The confluence of voices echoed through the building, amplifying feelings of vulnerability and triumph, solidifying connections forged in the flames of truth. This was it. Change was possible, journeying from isolation toward the bright embrace of community. As the music began to swell again, Lila stretched out her arms with Amelia right beside her. "Let us dance," they called out, laughter bubbling within them. Together they led the crowd forward into the rhythm of hope, uniting spirits while silence transformed into joy. In that moment, it became evident, Lila, Trent, and everyone present had stepped out of their shadows, breaking free of the hurt, stepping into a world bathed in love. The future was bright, uncharted, and brimming with potential. This was their story to tell, a testament to what had come to be. The last strains of music pumped through the air, carrying whispers of dreams fulfilled and bonds formed, stamping the night with a promise of connection, love, and unity. And as Lila took a breath, she knew the heart of harmony had begun to beat again, undeterred by the world outside. They were ready to love fiercely, celebrate every story, and ensure no one would ever feel alone again. Now, to you, the reader, this is our call. You need to subscribe now to witness the magic as it unfolds. This is the moment to show your support. Drop a like now to fuel our journey ahead. Leave a comment with your feelings and reactions about this transformation. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful connection can be. Join us in spreading the love.